My name is Taylor Fentz. I'm originally from Indiana in the United States. I'm currently based out of Delaware in the US. I have 3 pieces in the Collectibles and Curiosities exhibition: Collector's Collar, Collector's Locket, and Counterbalance. And all 3 lockets are out of a collection of lockets that I call Curious Lockets. The Curious Locket collection is currently ongoing. Each locket is based off of some aspect of the experience of collecting. This next part might go without saying in many parts of the world that have a longer history in arts and craft, but in America, many people still put a divide between art and craft, and certain areas of craft are only just now beginning to take the opportunity to try and take that line away. And I think the art jewelry movement that's finally gaining traction a bit in the United States is doing a really good job at trying to take that dividing line between art and craft away and see craft as a greater tool to make artistic expressions and as a mode of communicating what they're trying to say. So all of that is to say that I found viewing functionality in that way to be very beneficial in designing these lockets. Interacting with the lockets and actually experiencing how they each function, I think, is where a lot of the inspiration behind their design, or where a lot of the meaning can be found. For instance, the container collar is this kind of thick, chunky, heavy, rigid neck piece that almost resembles a bike lock. The focal is actually the clasp. And so in order to take this bike lock neck piece off of you, you actually have to open the barrel container. In doing that, you give the contents the opportunity to fall out. So I was thinking about collecting as hoarding, and when trying to kind of let go or rid yourself of that compulsion, you have to some degree, let go of these things that you're obsessively collecting. Whereas the collector's locket is still quite personal in that only the wearer has that nice clear view through the glass magnifying lens at what has been collected. But the smaller size and where it hangs on the neck, that you can pick it up and the wearer can really take what's in there out of it without taking the necklace off and place new things in it. And just the design in general is a bit softer, and so it conveys maybe more of an earnest feeling when thinking about collecting. I often imagine curiosity as the first point of connection and beginning to shift perspectives, to view something with fresh eyes as if for the first time, was something mundane and easily taken for granted, something like a blade of grass or a discarded piece of plastic on the ground. It's often all it takes to begin expanding the way you experience the world around you and therefore participate within that world. I actually wear the collector's locket almost daily as a way to kind of honor that way of viewing collecting and that act of collecting. The most recent locket I actually made it specifically for this exhibition. I've begun to see these lockets and baskets and viewfinders that I've been making as a way to address perception within a larger body of work. That larger body of work is often questioning human experience and what it means to be a human, and how humans might view themselves in relationship to all other things, and how that understanding of ourselves in relationship to other or nature, what is natural, what is man-made, might affect how we're interacting with the world. So this line of thinking involves a lot of comparison, measuring one thing against another, and so I'm often looking at some thing that might be considered natural and then comparing it to something that visually looks similar or is made in some similar way that is man-made or a byproduct of something man-made, and trying to see where a dividing line can be, and also trying to see where those materials overlap In doing this, I've noticed or tried to pay attention to what my perception is doing. And often it feels like, when I'm looking at something natural, I'm looking at that thing, and it's quite difficult to hold something that I consider man-made or that I know other people consider man-made, hold it next to something that I know people consider natural, and have them simultaneously be in opposition and still be clearly considering both of them at the same time. So with this locket counterbalance, you're collecting two things that are set apart from each other at opposing ends of a point that pivots where they pivot. And so whatever is heavier is going to fall to the bottom, and you can really only pay attention to one thing at a time. And even, if you lift the heavier thing to view it, you're only viewing that thing straight on, and you're not able to see the other side and really consider that other thing. And so in this way, considering two things and having them be in opposition makes it impossible to really see them both clearly at the same time. You have to see them as the same thing, in a sense, in order to see them at the same time. So my whole point in this is that when we see ourselves as humans, as a species, as individuals, as separate from these other things, we treat those other things as separate from ourselves. And in doing that, we end up harming ourselves in a lot of different ways, environmentally, I mean. It's only when we see ourselves as the same thing as these other things that we start to consider ways of treating the world in such a way that could actually be healthy and more ecologically sound, not so opposing, much more beneficial to all systems.